A ship stops moving. Normally, nothing extraordinary happens. Ships stop. Engines fail. Storms arrive. Ports become congested. The world keeps moving. But imagine that ship stopping in exactly the wrong place. Not in the middle of an ocean, not near an empty coastline, but inside a narrow corridor connecting entire regions of the world. Within hours, other ships begin waiting, then dozens, then hundreds, and suddenly, a local accident becomes a global problem, not because the ship is enormous, but because the system around it is.
Before the shortcut existed, ships had to travel much farther, around Africa, across enormous distances. More fuel, more time, more insurance, more uncertainty. Then infrastructure changed geography. A narrow artificial corridor connected two seas. Europe moved closer to Asia. Trade accelerated. Costs declined. Supply chains evolved. The canal did not simply shorten distance, it compressed time. And in global commerce, time is a form of capital. Every day saved can become money saved. Every hour gained can become inventory reduced. The shortcut became efficient, and efficiency attracted dependency.
This is where the story becomes interesting. No government had to order the world to depend on one corridor. No company had to force it. The dependency emerged naturally. Shipping companies wanted lower costs. Manufacturers wanted faster delivery. Retailers wanted smaller inventories. Investors wanted greater efficiency. Millions of independent decisions produced one collective outcome: more traffic through the same route, more infrastructure around it, more investment around it, more businesses designed around its timing. The system became faster, cheaper, more precise. But every improvement also removed another layer of redundancy. Efficiency had created concentration, and concentration had created a vulnerability.
Every transportation system has a bottleneck. Every electrical grid has a critical connection. Every computer network has a vulnerable node. Global trade is no different. Cargo does not move randomly. It follows optimized corridors, routes refined over decades, infrastructure built around them, capital allocated around them, businesses planned around them. Eventually, millions of decisions converge, and one corridor becomes indispensable, not because alternatives disappear, but because alternatives become expensive, slower, more uncertain. And when enough economic activity depends on the same connection, that connection becomes something more than infrastructure. It becomes leverage. Then came the interruption. One ship stopped moving. The blockage lasted days, but the consequences traveled much farther. Shipping schedules changed. Containers arrived late. Factories recalculated production. Warehouses watched inventory levels. Commodity markets reacted. Insurance exposure changed. Financial systems monitored the disruption. How could one vessel create so many consequences? Because globalization no longer operates as separate economies. It operates as one integrated machine. A component manufactured in one country may be assembled in another, installed somewhere else, sold on another continent. A delay in one location
does not necessarily stay there. It propagates through the network. In global trade, distance matters, but time matters more. A factory can survive higher transportation costs. Uncertainty is harder. Manufacturers schedule production. Ports allocate docking windows. Railways coordinate inland movement. Warehouses prepare inventory. Retailers forecast demand. Banks finance shipments. Everything depends on predictable timing. That is what modern globalization optimized, not simply movement, synchronization. The right component at the right place at the right time. But precision creates a strange trade-off. The more precisely the system operates, the less room it has for surprise.
Modern supply chains were designed to eliminate waste. Warehouses became smaller, inventory became leaner, production became synchronized. Capital no longer needed to sit idle inside storage. Every unnecessary day became unnecessary cost. This transformed global manufacturing. But the system paid a hidden price. Redundancy was reduced. Buffers became smaller. Alternative routes became less attractive. Efficiency became the priority. And efficiency is powerful until something unexpected happens. Then the same system that once looked incredibly optimized can suddenly look incredibly sensitive. The stronger the machine becomes, the more precisely it must operate.
The deeper lesson is not about one canal. It is about geography. Civilization appears enormous, but its critical connections are often surprisingly small. A narrow canal, a strategic strait, a major port, a submarine cable, a semiconductor facility, an electrical substation, a software platform, different industries, same architecture. Millions depend on a connection that may be physically tiny. That is the paradox of modern systems. Scale can hide concentration, and concentration creates leverage. The map looks enormous. The dependency may fit inside a few hundred meters.
This is where infrastructure becomes power. The canal does not need to own the cargo. It does not need to own the factories. It does not need to own the retailers. It only needs to remain critical to the system. That is a different form of power, architectural power, power created through position. When thousands of economic decisions depend on the same infrastructure, the infrastructure becomes strategically valuable, not because it controls everything, but because everything else has adapted around it. That is the architecture of leverage. You do not always need ownership. Sometimes, position is enough.
Globalization appears powerful, enormous, resilient, almost unstoppable, but appearance can be deceptive. Large systems are often supported by surprisingly small structures. The more connected the world became, the more efficient it became. And the more efficient it became, the more specialized it became. Specialization created productivity. Productivity created prosperity. But specialization also created dependency. And dependency created sensitivity. The problem was never that globalization was weak. The problem was
that globalization became deeply interconnected. And deeply interconnected systems can transmit both value and disruption.
The ship was never the story. It was only the trigger. The real story was the architecture beneath it. An architecture where factories depend on schedules, where schedules depend on ports, where ports depend on corridors, where corridors depend on geography, and geography can create concentration. The disruption revealed something invisible. A modern economy can appear decentralized while remaining highly dependent. Millions of businesses, thousands of companies, hundreds of countries, yet only a limited number of critical connections. That is why system failures often begin in places nobody watches.
Now the pattern becomes visible. The same architecture appears everywhere. A few critical nodes supporting enormous systems. Submarine cables support digital communication. Semiconductor factories support advanced computing. Power grids support modern industry. Ports support global commerce. Strategic corridors support trade. Different infrastructures, same principle. Power rarely needs to control everything. It only needs to control what everything else depends on. That is why infrastructure matters. It is not merely the background of the economy. It can become the structure through which the economy operates.
So, what did the disruption actually reveal? Not that one ship was powerful, not that one canal was important, but that modern civilization has become extraordinarily dependent on connection. We built systems for speed, for efficiency, for synchronization. We removed friction, we reduced waste, we optimized everything. And in doing so, we concentrated dependency. The world became faster, but also more sensitive. The shortcut became infrastructure. Infrastructure became dependency. Dependency became leverage, and leverage became power. That is the hidden architecture of global trade. The world does not always depend on the largest structure. Sometimes it depends on the narrowest one. And perhaps that is the question worth carrying forward. Not where the world's biggest assets are, but where the world's smallest critical connections are. Because when the shortcut disappears, the architecture finally becomes visible.
Nexera. Decoding systems. Architecting wealth.